Hi guys! So today I'm going to explain 7 different ways to incorporate elastic into your sewing. And by learning and practicing all 7 techniques, you will immensely enhance your sewing skills. So let's start with the casing for an elastic. Normally the edge should be finished when this is done, and you can click on this video here for different techniques on how to finish off raw edges. In this demo, I have my edge serged. So a casing is usually done in a tube, so I'm going to fold my fabric in half and sew up the edge. Go ahead and open up the seam and fold the edge down. Normally, you would measure out how wide the elastic is before you determine how wide the fold should be. Sew on the finished edge all the way around, leaving about an inch opened. Measure out the amount of elastic needed for the casing. Usually it's about 1.5 to 2 inches shorter than your normal waist measurements. Place a safety pin onto the elastic and feed it through the opening in the casing, making sure you don't pull it all the way through. Bring the ends together, overlapping about 3/4 to an inch, and what you'll do is sew a box with a diagonal across it. So start at the edge, sew straight down. Don't go off the edge, but when you're close, lift up your presser foot and make a right turn. Sew again, make another right turn, then sew, then make another right turn. You've created a little box, and now turn it slightly so you can sew a straight line at an angle. Some people like to form an X in the box, but I personally think that the diagonal is good enough. Another way to sew the elastic together is by butting it up. Line up the edge of the elastic, making sure that the middle of the presser foot is right in the middle of the edges of the two elastic. Now sew a zigzag stitch back and forth a few times, and this is what you should get. Personally, I like doing this better, and it's less bulky when you wear it. So now that the elastic is closed up, next sew a straight line where the opening is, and your encased elastic is done. So this type of casing is seen a lot in pajama pants, skirts, and of course the pants that I have here. And you can also see that the same technique is applied to the leg as well. Now this next one is used a lot in leggings because it's fast and it's easy, and you'll start off with the tube again, making sure that the seam are pressed open. Now cut out the appropriate length for the elastic. Fold the elastic in half and make a mark. Place the edge of the elastic on the edge of the seam. Mark the halfway point on the fabric and match up the halfway mark on the elastic to that point. Bring the rest of the elastic around so it matches up with the seam again. Now the elastic will be smaller than the tube, but the idea is to stretch the elastic equally around each mark you made. When you're sewing, you'll want the edge of the fabric and the elastic to be in the middle of the foot. Now stretch it out and zigzag stitch all the way around. This is what it will look like. Go ahead and fold the elastic inwards and then sew on the edge of the zigzag. Now there you go, a pretty fast and easy way to put in elastic. Sometimes I just guesstimate my markings, but for beginners, you gotta learn how to do it the right way first before you start BSing your stuff. But like I said, you can do this on leggings, simple skirts, PJs, anything really. So this next technique is very similar to the previous one, except we're going to use elastic thread. So start out with the markings just like the last one. And what you do is wind up your bobbin with elastic thread, which looks like this. Now when you're winding it up, be 100% sure you are not stretching it out. Just loosely wrap it around the bobbin. By the way, you can find elastic thread at any fabric store or sewing store. What you'll end up having is your regular thread and then the elastic thread that comes up from the bottom. Again, fold the elastic inwards, but this time when you sew, you're going to have the right side facing upwards. Change your stitch length to like a 2.5 or a 3, and remember to stretch the fabric out so that it's flat, then sew. If you don't stretch, it defeats the purpose. The reason why I'm teaching you this is because I want to teach you guys how to make swimsuits later on in the future, and this is a great way to make swimwear and any other kind of knitwear really. And this is a great way to get stretch in your fabric as well as cuppage when you're trying to make a knit garment. This next technique is a way of shirring by using elastic. What you'll do is you'll draw a few straight lines on the wrong side of the fabric. I'm doing this with a Sharpie for learning purposes, but you probably want to do this with chalk. So cut out an elastic that is shorter than the piece of fabric. The shorter the elastic, the more shirring you will get. So fold the elastic in half and mark the midpoint. Fold your fabric in half and mark the midpoint on each line. Place the midpoint of the elastic in the middle of the fabric. The idea is simple. The ends of the elastic will match up with the ends of the fabric. Go ahead and stretch and sew. If you do it with one elastic, it's called gathering, but more than one elastic is actually called shirring. So this is what it will look like once you're completely done shirring all of your elastic. You see this more in puffy sleeve shirts. You actually see this also in pirate shirts or Victorian shirts as well. But as far as shirring with an elastic band, well, there's an easy way to do it, and it's with elastic thread. So the same idea is still there. Depending on how many lines of shirring you want, you'll also want to mark that on the fabric. Next, with your bobbin, you're going to wrap the elastic thread around it. This is a little bit different because you'll want to pull the elastic and then wrap it around the bobbin. Don't do it loosely like you did before or it will not work. So go ahead and sew on the lines, and the fabric will magically gather as you sew. Each new row that you sew is going to be a bit more annoying because it's previously gathered from before, so be sure that the fabric is always flattened out when it's being fed through the machine. See how evenly the gathering and the shirring looks when you do it this way? It's also a lot faster than using elastic, but you need to know how to do both because this technique is not going to be very good on sleeves because it's not as strong as the elastic technique. Now, I'm sure you've seen shirring almost everywhere. It's done in skirts, tube tops, and especially in the back of dresses. The reason why this is so great on dresses is because it can fit people who are in half sizes without actually having to create a completely different pattern set for that dress, which also saves the company tons of money. So this next one, I call it the elastic channel. Go ahead and mark a line on your fabric and mark another line parallel to that line. The width between those two lines will be the width of your elastic. Place that piece of fabric onto another piece of fabric and sew on the two lines. Hook a safety pin on the end of the elastic. Now feed it through the little channel that you had just sewn. You can go ahead and fold the two ends together and sew. So look how cute this turned out. By the way, this is a really quick and cute way to make a garter if you want to try it out. This dress doesn't have an elastic channel, but it does have a channel for a drawstring done with the same concept. You do see it a lot in dresses and now in rompers actually because it's an easy way to cinch the waist without spending too much time. This last one, I like to call it the well-fitted scrunchie. What you're going to do is cut out a piece of fabric that is 2 times the width of the elastic plus 2 times the seam allowance. Cut out a piece of elastic depending on what you're going to do with it. Fold the fabric in half and sew on the edge. Attach a safety pin to one side of the strip, bring it inwards, and start feeding the ends through to flip the tube inside out. Roll it a bit so that the seam sits in the center. Now what you're going to do next is attach the safety pin to the elastic and feed it through the tube, making sure that the seam continues to stay in the middle. Now go ahead and sew the ends to secure it if you want to. So this is what you'll get, a little scrunchie thingy. Surprisingly, I have been seeing this used a lot more than not. For example, this romper I bought from Forever 21. Well, in the back is a bunch of scrunchies crisscrossing each other. It's a fun way to decorate your garment as well as create an elastic with the same fabric choice. So that's that, 7 pretty spiffy way to twiddle around with elastic. How do you apply this garments to clothing? Well, that's up to you, and that's what separates a designer from a seamstress. So good luck guys, and rock on fashionistas!